It might sound surprising, but there's some strange science at work inside our local supermarkets. Some of the foods we can buy today are the work of very creative scientists who've been making meals that are bred to order for decades. And I don't just mean extra tender steaks. With wacky creations ranging from glow-in-the-dark bacon to utterly bizarre hybrid fruits and vegetables, here are some of the strangest foods we've bred into existence. Venomous cabbage. It's a commonly known fact that the stingers of desert scorpions are loaded with deadly toxins. But you might be alarmed to learn that, for decades, scientists have been serving these toxins with our vegetables. In 1994, British scientists produced a batch of cabbages that came complete with what else but scorpion venom. Sounds crazy, but it's completely true. And it's all possible thanks to the creation of genetically modified organisms, or GMOs. The scientists inserted a venom-producing gene, found in the Androctonus australis scorpion, into the DNA of a baculovirus, a virus that only affects insects considered pests to cabbage growth. Then, a mixture containing the virus was sprayed onto a test batch of cabbages. As a result, when insects like caterpillars ate the cabbage leaves, the venom toxins produced by the genetically modified viruses they inadvertently ingested immediately took effect, blocking nerve cells from transmitting signals between the brain and muscles. This nerve cell damage could in turn paralyze the unlucky insects, or, in many cases, kill them. But as scary as venomous viruses sound, the cabbages are actually completely safe for human consumption. Various previous studies showed that the virus has no effect on mammals, and the venom produced by the scorpion is only potent enough to kill insects. But would you consider veggies fronting up to you with a venomous tail and pincers safe? Well, I suppose that's up to you. But it's likely to be a while before you have to worry about that, though, because since the cabbage experiment took place in the 90s, there's still been no word on widespread applications. And until the Food and Drug Administration says it's safe, it's not likely we'll ever come across wacky frankenfoods of this kind. But as you'll soon see, if frankenfoods are your thing, there's still plenty to tuck into. The Frankenstein tree. If the concept of a fruit salad tree sounds like the stuff of dreams to you, you'll be pleasantly surprised to learn about the very real Frankenstein tree. Otherwise known as the tree of 40 fruit, this bizarre, singular specimen can, you guessed it, grow 40 different kinds of fruit. I'm not kidding. Artist Sam Van Aken came up with the concept to grow a single tree bearing fruits like peaches, plums, apricots, and cherries in 2008. Van Aken achieved this by an amazing process called chip grafting, which involves slicing a chunk of branch from one of the desired fruit trees, inserting it into a slit in a branch on the main working tree, and wrapping it up with tape to heal by itself. Once the pieces fuse, the attachment buds into a new branch. Over the course of 5 years, Van Aken added branches from 40 different donor plants to the tree. Out of necessity, the ones he chose already had strong similarities in their chromosomal structure. In fact, cross-pollinating would be impossible if they weren't all stone fruit varieties, as they wouldn't have enough genetic material in common to breed. Dozens of these stone fruit Frankenstein trees have now been planted throughout the US, and in the spring, the trees of 40 fruit come to life with white pink blossoms and explode in an array of delicious fruit in sequence. I'm not sure what else he has planned, but I'd say we can count on this as Sam Van Aken's most fruitful endeavor so far. Web-spinning goats. We've heard of Spider-Man and Spider-Ham, aka Peter Porker, but as utterly insane as it sounds, scientists have actually created a real-life goat-spider hybrid. The strange saga of the spider goat began in the early 2000s, when a group of Canadian scientists from Nexia Biotechnologies decided to genetically modify goats to produce spider silk. Amazingly, some types of silk spiders produce is 5 times stronger than steel and more elastic than rubber. making it a very desirable resource. But gathering it from spiders in usable quantities is nearly impossible. So instead, Nexia scientists spliced the silk-making gene from orb spiders into the part of goat's DNA that produces milk in the udders. Then, when the female goats they developed featuring these genes matured and produced milk, it was full of a glue-like protein called fibroin that, when purified, dried, dissolved, and spun into microfibers, provides super strength and stretchability. This makes it perfect for usage in body armor, airbags, and even for use in repairing human ligaments. However, at this point, no one's quite figured out how to produce the fibroin in high enough quantities to be economically viable. So don't expect to see a lot of spider goats at your local petting zoo just yet. We'll be leaving the spider hybrids to Marvel, for now. A feast for the eyes. Broccoli and cauliflower are staples of a healthy plate. But if you ever feel yourself getting bored of the regular versions of these veggies, why not try an exotic cross between the two? Introducing the Broccoflower. You have your choice of two types. One that looks like a regular white cauliflower with green hair dye, and the other being the head-turning Romanesco plant that tastes like sweet broccoli and looks like a trippy fractal forest. Both of these are possible thanks to the fact that, being different cultivars of the same species, broccoli and cauliflower are fully compatible for cross-pollination. Since the 16th century, Italian farmers have been crossing pollen from broccoli with cauliflower to get fertilized Broccoflower seeds. And seeing as this was a time long before gene editing, the result only contains natural DNA. So how does Romanesco broccoli get that amazing patterned appearance? Well, as the plant grows, it develops specialized tissues called meristems on the tips of its shoots that enable cells to divide and grow into small buds. When standard broccoli and cauliflower grows, for example, these buds form the bulk of the part we eat, and if they aren't harvested, they bloom. With Romanescos, the shoots produce near-identical buds that don't turn into flowers when they mature. Instead, they do something remarkable. They develop into stems that multiply and divide over and over again, forming a near-perfect self-replicating spiral. Intriguingly, crazy fractal effects like this appear all the time in nature, like in spirally sunflowers and in nautilus shells, as it's a super efficient way for living organisms to arrange themselves in a densely packed manner, making it a favorable trait for evolution. And with the Broccoflower in particular, making it a favorable addition to your dinner plate. Culinary crossbreed. What do you get when you cross a tomato and a potato? A tomato? A pomado? Whichever way you look at it, it's your fries and ketchup all deliciously mixed up in one. But as jokey as it sounds, the pomato really does exist. The first time tomato-y tottos were grown on the same plant was in Germany in the 70s, and they were launched commercially, marketed as Tom Tottos in the mid-2010s. Now, you'd be forgiven for thinking the result is something akin to a potato skin wrapped around fleshy tomato insides, or sewn together like a genuine Franken-food monster. However, sadly, only a lasso tool from Photoshop can graft us those creations. Fun as the concept is, in reality, while the pomato does combine both plants, the potatoes grow as normal down in the dirt, while the plain old tomato fruits grow up above. I know these two plants may seem like an odd couple, but there's a good reason for the matchup. True, tomatoes and potatoes don't exactly look alike, but they're actually from the same Solanaceae plant family. As a rule, the closer two plants are genetically, the more likely a union will form between the scion, which is the shoot cut for grafting, and the rootstock, the underground part of the other plant. So, to get the desired ketchup and fries combo, a wound is made on the roots of the potato plant. Then, a tender shoot from the tomato plant is grafted onto that wound, so each plant's tissues can grow together as a single plant, each half bearing its own edible treats. What's more, planting the pomato as a double crop plant is also extremely efficient, as it maximizes the number of veggies grown in a single plot. making it a great contender as foodstuff for places where space is scarce. And obviously for people who can't be bothered to go to McDonald's for their ketchup and carb cravings. Glowing bacon. Forget romantic dinners by candlelight. What would you say to some glow-in-the-dark bacon on your plate? In January 2006, a group of Taiwanese scientists decided to insert genes from an entirely different organism into the DNA sequence of a group of pig embryos, with utterly bizarre results. In this case, a green fluorescent protein, or GFP for short, was plucked from a species of jellyfish called Aquaria victoria that emits light when its proteins bind with calcium in seawater. They then modified the enhanced green fluorescent gene to make its glowing properties twice as powerful. The scientists then used a process called zygote microinjection to insert the genetic material for the green fluorescent protein into a fertilized pig cell using a super thin needle. When the cell divided, the green gene was replicated and made its way into every cell of the pig's body, including their hearts and internal organs. However, not every embryo picked up the gene. The injected embryos literally had a 1 in 100 chance of a glow-up. But for the pigs that did carry the gene, during the day their teeth, eyes, and skin were a little on the green side, and in the dark, under a UV light, they glowed like radioactive cartoon characters. Even so, they were perfectly healthy and acted just like any other pig. Another team of scientists were able to genetically engineer 10 more glowing piglets in 2013. Like the earlier batch, these neon rashers on legs glowed a brilliant fluorescent green under a blacklight. But what's the purpose of all this fluorescent fun? Well, the fluorescent proteins in the bodies of the glowing pigs are still able to glow during stem cell treatment, making it easier to monitor the healing process of diseased organs over time. It's also an important stepping stone in researching how we might be able to add beneficial genes to humans in future for curing diseases and, potentially, adding other beneficial genetic traits. And that's right, I'm kinda talking man-made superpowers here. Though you'll have to let me know what your thoughts on the morality of that are down in the comments below. After all, what if, in the future, only the rich can afford to genetically enhance their kids? Certainly food for thought. As for a glowing future for the fluorescent pigs, researchers say their lifespan is perfectly normal, though there's no word on how a plateful of glowing bacon might taste. Printed horses. You may have heard about the groundbreaking new trend of lab-grown meats, but it's usually beef on the menu in this regard. However, it looks like even stranger meat is back on the menu too, for Russians and Hungarians. In 2019, a startup company called ArtMeat started using horse cells to culture high-protein, low-fat meat. Surprisingly, lab-cultured meat isn't merely a soy-based vegan alternative. It's real animal meat, and here's how it works. Scientists cultivate animal muscle cells in a bioreactor and 3D print them into steaks and fillets. While in a real animal, you have a tissue containing muscle cells, blood vessels, and fat, you need to raise, feed, and ultimately kill the animal in order to eat it. With a bioreactor, meanwhile, scientists use an oxygen-rich liquid medium made up of basic nutrients like vitamins and proteins, which cells, taken safely and harmlessly from a living animal, float in, munching away at this mixture, growing and multiplying into fat and muscle tissue. With the raw materials for meat produced, scientists can arrange them in the same way as muscle fibers form in an animal's body to get the same taste and overall texture of juicy meat. If all of this intrigues you, lab-grown beef is becoming increasingly common in supermarkets and restaurants alike, while ArtMeat have plans to bring their lab-grown horse meat to the Russian and Hungarian markets in 2023. Where demand for horse meat is higher than most places in the world. While the costs of producing lab-grown meat are currently high, the company have been steadily reducing the cost of producing one horse burger in the lab from $325,000 to $1,000. and by 2027, the price of lab-grown horse meat is expected to be equal to the real stuff. For art meat, the biggest appeal is that animals won't have to be killed for the food. But would you swap butchered meat for lab-grown? And on the topic, have you ever tried horse meat? Let me know down in the comments below. Beefy pigs. We've already seen glowing pigs and web-spinning goats, but in the universe of GMO special abilities, these super muscly pigs are top of the line. Scientists have been breeding pigs that are double muscled in South Korea since 2015. Usually, the myostatin gene in pigs limits the growth of muscle cells to a reasonable amount, but when disrupted, its behavior mutates, causing cells in the skeletal muscles to grow rapidly instead. Molecular biologist Jin-Soo Kim managed to disrupt this specific gene in pigs using a gene editing technology called TALEN. This involves a DNA cutting enzyme attached to a DNA binding protein that guides the enzyme specifically to the myostatin gene inside cells taken from a pig, which it then cuts and edits. Then, the edited cell is injected into a fertilized egg, where the modified cells replicate, developing into an embryo with the modified genes throughout its entire body. The result? Animals that look like they've been pumping iron in the gym, producing leaner, meatier meat and in greater quantities. Whether or not this has you licking your lips or spit-taking in horror, the South Korean researchers eventually aim to market the beefy bacon to farmers in China, where demand for pork is on the rise, with the rest of the world on the horizon after that. These genetically modified piggies have yet to be approved for human consumption, but if double-muscled meat is your thing, you can tuck into some bulky beef in the form of Belgian blue cows. As with the pigs, the myostatin gene that controls muscle growth is disrupted in Belgian blues, causing double muscles. Only with these cows, the mutation is more natural, being the result of countless generations of selective breeding, rather than genetic modification. But with specimens like this 6'4" burly bovine named Knickers from Australia weighing in at a whopping 220 stone, I have to say natural is used pretty loosely. Given that you'd probably struggle to slaughter one of these absolute units with anything smaller than an Abrams tank, the only question is, are you in favor of ultra meat like this? Let me know down in the comments below. Fruit freaks of nature. Don't let these white strawberries fool you. Despite their appearance, they're ripe for the picking over in Florida. What you're looking at here is a pineberry, the result of cross-pollinating wild strawberries. They're just like normal strawberries, only deliciously zesty and crossbred specifically for their inverted colors. All strawberries start off white, but anthocyanin proteins pigment most strawberries red when they ripen. Pineberries, meanwhile, end up producing much lower amounts of anthocyanin in their flesh, so when they're ripe and ready to eat, they're white inside and out. There are other weirdly shaped fruits out there too, like this freakish frankenberry that looks like it was copy-pasted one too many times. Deformed straws like this are called fasciated or coxcomb strawberries. Usually, plant meristems, cells capable of division into other specialized cells, are responsible for producing fruits in a normal, organized pattern. Sometimes, though, that tight control is lost, usually due to cold weather or bacteria affecting the function of the plant's cells, and extra-large, elongated fruits are formed. But don't worry, the resulting fruit is just as delicious and completely safe to eat, as is the case with the like of this deformed pair of melons. Oddly shaped fruits like these are made in Japan, and there's no genetic modification this time either. While the watermelon is still small on the vine, a square tempered glass box or a heart mold is placed around it so it grows in that shape. The same is the case for these cute baby pears, which are tucked inside a plastic mold of the laughing god of fortune in China. So if you're into weird fruits, or you think your gala apples need more personality, try growing some of your own in interesting shaped molds or containers in your backyard. Now that's how you make eating fruit fun. Apple enigmas. If the appearance of apples, even those in a cube shape, still seem boring to you, may I present the pink pearl apple. She's a thing of beauty, ain't she? We have Californian farmer Albert Eder to thank for being the first to grow the sweet pink pearl back in 1944. He wanted to grow traits from an apple with red-tinted flesh, aptly named the surprise apple, the crimson flesh of which resulted from increased amounts of anthocyanin, a chemical that gives many apples their rich red pigment in the peel. So, Eder cross-pollinated the surprise with other varieties, replanting the subsequent seeds until, eventually, he found himself with a tree bearing red-fleshed apples with unassuming golden skin. Arguably, given the contrast between its skin and its interior flesh, Eder's creation was even more worthy of the name surprise. Someone else with an affinity for reddish fruit is Swiss fruit breeder Markus Kobelt, who spent over 20 years selectively breeding his apples to resemble the shape and color of a heart when cut in half. By cross-pollinating the Royal Gala and Braeburn apples with some other red-fleshed varieties he's yet to reveal, Kobelt ended up with a fruit with redder, more vibrant flesh and peel than had ever been previously achieved. But the value of these red fruits goes deeper than their appearance. Thanks to high amounts of polyphenols, which are compounds typically found in dark red fruits, they're packed with 13 times more antioxidants than normal apples, which not only makes them healthier, but also allows them to retain their color even after sliced, making them take much longer to go brown. Kobelt's fruits are more than just apples. They're the blushing picture of health. The mysterious limelon. In 2020, British supermarket chain Marks & Spencer introduced the limited edition limelon. Their marketing teased customers, is it a lime? Is it a melon? No, it's a limelon. But was this strange creation actually a funky fusion of the two vastly different fruits? Well, by appearance of that lime or lemon-like outer skin alone, you could certainly believe this was a cross of citrus fruit and watermelon. And given the wacky gene jobs we've seen science perform on some of our favorite foods in this video already, it's easy to visualize Dr. Fruitenstein stitching the DNA of two plants together. Sadly though, what looks like a melon tucked inside a lime skin is nothing more than a bitter ruse. What Marks & Spencer's specifically sold as a new invented fruit, crossing sweet melon with the zestiness of lime, was seemingly intentionally misleading. Well, it was half correct. It really is a melon. But the lime part was in taste alone. There was no cut and pasting of DNA going on. Regardless, thanks to the fruit's unusual marketing, customers were left unsure as to whether it was genetically modified or not, leaving the supermarket's social media team to clarify that none of their products were genetically modified. But without any gene splicing magic, how'd they make a melon taste like a lime? Well, with very careful selective breeding and expert taste testers, it's possible to achieve fruit flavors that are similar to other fruits without genetic modification. For the melon produce a similar, albeit milder, mouth-puckering bitterness of a fresh lime, farmers selected more acidic varieties to cross-pollinate together. By cross-pollinating generation after generation of these bitter-tasting melons, their unique qualities became more and more pronounced, resulting in an entirely new variety of melon with a notable citrusy zest. But if the citrusy flavor of a lime or lemon doesn't quite scratch your itch for citrus melons, you can go down a more visually lemon-like route. Yep, yellow-fleshed watermelons are actually a thing, the product of a natural mutation, and are grown on the African continent as well as in the Central American landmass. Geez, after all this hybridization craziness, I think I'll need to bring myself back to earth with a good, reliable, normal apple. So, which of these strange foods tantalized or turned off your appetite? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching.